stuff from the lost and found car. It will be emptied at the end of the day. We are Homer Quote of the Day, wishing you a most enjoyable weekend. With that, this will conclude the morning announcements. Have a great day. And as always, Homer Strong.
Awesome. Well, good morning, everyone. This is my last time that I'm going to be with you guys in your class, and this is also the last time that I'll be teaching a lesson for you guys. Like I said earlier, for one of my classes at SAU, I have to film myself teaching, so that's why we got that back there. I also have to be observed, so if everybody looks back, this is Miss Polly. Can everyone say hi to Miss Polly? Good. She's observing me, and we have to then meet after this and then talk about how I did teaching. So, let's just get right into it. I know you guys are on section 4, so if we can turn our packets where section 4 is, and then I believe that's on page 475 in your textbook, but you guys can also go there as well. So, like I said, I haven't been with you guys for some time, and I want to kind of know what you guys have been talking about in chapter 13. So who can just briefly tell me some things that you guys have been going over so far in chapter 13? Who can tell me? Evan?
About Hitler and Jewish Republic.
Okay, so you talked about the Holocaust and stuff like that. All right, what else? What else have you guys been talking about? Yep. All right, things leading up to World War II. What else? What else is there that you guys have been talking about in chapter 13 at least? Leading up to it. Say that again? Dictators, okay. Talking about Hitler, his rise to power, and how he kind of controlled Germany and started going in after war and stuff like that. All right, anybody else got anything that they can tell me that you guys have been talking about so that I know where you guys are at? All right, that's fine, we can move on. So, at this point, America has not yet entered the war, correct? Yeah, America's not in the war yet. So, that means we are an isolationist country when it comes to war right now, all right? We didn't want to go into this huge war that's that's happening in Europe right now. So, who can tell me what an isolationist country is? Does anyone know what that is and can tell me what that means? Yep.
It's a country that stays out of war, and it's like, it doesn't pick a side.
Exactly. It's exactly how it sounds, all right? They're an isolationist country, so they want to be in isolation, all right? So, a big question that I'm going to pose to you guys today, and I want you to think about this in two different aspects. So one, the question says, should we, America, continue to be an isolationist country when it comes to the war? So think about this in both terms of back then, and I also want you to think about it in terms of today. I want to get you guys' opinion on this. All right? So, with your partner next to you, all right, or just turn to your table partner, and I want you to discuss this question, both in terms of back then, all right, so do you think America should have been an isolationist country back then regarding World War II? And I also want you to talk about today. All right, there's a lot of wars going around in the world. So what do you think the role of the United States is in that? All right, do we have a responsibility to help those countries that are constantly in civil war? Or is it just their own problem and they need to fend for themselves, all right? So, in groups, just right around your desk, I want you guys to start talking about this, and we'll come back in like 1-2 minutes, I'll give you that, all right? So talk now about this.
So what's your opinion on that? Do you think we should have gotten involved like earlier in World War I? And do something about that. Or do you think we should have stayed put and think about that same thing today? Should we get involved in what's going on everywhere else, or should we mind our own business? It's an opinion question.
We should definitely start stepping into
Okay,
those
Sorry.
name Bosnia, Iraq, Syria, ISIS,
exactly.
They can actually
Okay.
help.
And,
Exactly. Because our war, because our army is so big.
but they walked
I mean,
all the way from the Middle East up, like,
yeah,
on the highways to.
technology.
So then the family were like, some people were like, and then
We're
they're literally being killed.
Good, let's come back together and let's discuss what you guys were talking about, alright? So, let's start with back then. What should America have done in regards to being an isolationist country, alright? So what do we come with back there, alright? Can I get someone back there to tell me what you guys were talking about? Anybody, it don't matter who. Dave.
I think that it was good, like, to go into World War II, because we helped out a lot of people.
Okay. Helped out a lot of people. What about over here on the left? You guys tell me what you guys talked about in regards to America jumping into World War II. Yeah.
I think that if it's getting bad enough for targeting our supplies and they're coming after us too,
Mhm.
we should join.
Okay, we should join. Yep.
And we should mind our own business if we don't wanna do something bad or dangerous.
Okay. So that's a good point. We got two different sides being said. So Davey's saying that we have a responsibility. All right. We know that the Holocaust is happening in Europe. All right, and a lot of innocent people are dying. Right. But is it also? This isn't our country. So do we have that sense of responsibility to send our own people, our own citizens, our own troops into a place that's being, terrorized by war, knowing that a lot of them probably aren't going to come back? So that's a good point. There's both of that. All right. Same thing. Let's talk about now in terms of today. Do you think America still has that role of an isolationist country in terms of today?
No, not really, because,
Okay.
or well, kind of, but not really, because we usually step in if our allies are getting beat so badly by whoever they're fighting war with.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. I saw a hand raised here.
We should go to work because they should like, the two countries are fighting, they should like figure out their own like problems and talk it out.
Yeah. All right. So yep.
I think we should not, because when we get in war, we change lives. We help everyone.
So it's kind of the exact same thing. So World War II happened a long time ago, and we're still trying to figure out this important question. All right. Like Evan and Jacob were saying, like we have this responsibility, kind of, to play. We have such as powerful army, this powerful navy, this powerful air force. So we have some sort of responsibility to, pay to the world to help them out when they are having war of their own. But at the same time, again, we're sending troops over to a country that's not our own. All right, do we have that? So we're still kind of struggling with that question today. So back then, I see on your packet there's a lot of committees that came up that were against the war. All right, a lot of people were against it. A lot of people were for America joining the war. All right, and there's three in particular that I want to cover today. So I'm going to split you guys up into three groups, and you guys are going to read and then write down what each committee stood for. So let's see, just three groups. So right here, all right, you six can be one group, and you guys are going to read and find out what the Fight for Freedom Committee stood for, all right, and what they believed in. You should be able to find it in your textbook. All right, then we'll go, let's see, we'll go Evan, 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys can be group 2, and I want you to read and find out. You guys are the America First Committee, all right? What they stood for. So you guys get in your group and find that out, and then we'll go these 5 right here. All right, your group 3, and yours is a long one. Committee to Defend America by Aiding Allies. All right, has everyone got which committee they're looking for?
Yeah.
All right, we'll come back in a couple minutes and we'll discuss each one, and I'll throw them up on the board. All right, so you guys can get working on that. All right.
Section.
The ice cream release,
Yeah.
Committee to defend America by aiding the Allies. Where is that on this
So,
page?
Fight for Freedom Committee was a group that urged the repeal of all neutrality laws and was founded by King.
Oh, I see it. So
conversations, that way we
See
can make
where
it,
it is, Elizabeth?
so like the conversation lasts longer.
Down there? Alright, so it says closer to the center, the Committee of America, or the Committee to Defend America by Aiding the Allies, which journalist William Allen Whitehead pressed for increased American aid to the Allies, but opposed armed intervention. So what do they believe we should do? Alright, so when it says increased American aid to the Allies,
We
which
should
is
help just with lane products, that's it.
Good, you guys got yours down already?
What?
Alright, which one are you doing? Oh, the fight for freedom, alright.
So when it
You
says
guys got it, you
what
good?
is it?
Alright. I'll have one person talk about
help
it.
like how? Okay, so Madison, what else?
Good? Write some stuff down. Alright.
Well, it says, well, it could be, it could say nurses, what else?
It's like a.
Well, you gotta look carefully, it says increased American aid to the Allies, but opposed armed intervention. So what does it mean by, what's opposed mean? Or opposed to something? Like an opponent.
Didn't try to be wrong.
Be opposed to something.
What you guys find?
We're against it, right? Okay, so we're against armed interventions, or we're against, this group is against soldiers.
Okay, so they
They're
don't want
okay
anything.
with giving
Alright.
aid, so
Alright, so they're like farts, because they don't want more
money,
whatsoever.
it could be medicine, so we should help with giving aid.
Hey, what did you guys find in yours? What was your committee
Not
stand for?
sending soldiers. So if you ask.
So they wanted war, no matter what. And they wanted all neutrality losses to go away. And they wanted to hurt Germany bad. Alright, that's good. How you guys doing over here? You guys good? You be able to talk about it?
Tell them what it is.
Right.
Yesterday, 2 days ago, I had my son.
But not what? And Sunday. So soldiers, no soldiers.
They wanted to help them, but they didn't want to send troops. So, yeah, that's good. Awesome. Seems like everybody's doing good. So in your groups, all right, stay where you're seated at. All right, and let's go over them so then each group can know what the other is talking about. So let's start right here. All right, give me one person who wants to talk about, say, which committee you were and what they stood for. Yeah.
We were the American First Committee, and it was an isolationist group opposed to any American intervention or aid to the Allies.
All right, so it was opposed to any sort of intervention and no aid whatsoever to the Allies, so they were very much against the war. All right, give me one person from this group, say your committee, all right, and then what it stood for.
We were the Fight for Freedom Committee, and it was a group that urged the repeal of all neutrality laws and a stronger action against Turkey.
All right, so it's kind of the opposite of what they were just talking about. All right, they wanted to repeal neutrality laws and they want stronger action against Germany. So they very much wanted to enter the war. All right, let's talk about this group right here. Who can talk about what you guys were going over? All right.
They wanted to send like nurses and like Spanish medicine, but they didn't want to send like armed soldiers over.
Right.
They didn't want any more like soldiers over the war.
So they very much wanted to aid. They were kind of in the middle. All right, they wanted to aid the Allies back in Europe, but they didn't want to actually go into the war by sending troops over. All right. So up on the board, I have each committee, so you guys can copy them down, and so you guys can have them for the test. And I'll just briefly go over them as you guys are looking them over and writing them down. So we had the Fight for Freedom Committee. That was who's Fight for Freedom? You guys. All right. Fight for Freedom, a group that urged the repeal of all neutrality laws and stronger action against Germany. All right. So no matter what, they're very much opposed to being neutral in the war, and they wanted to take action against Germany, who was going to war with all these countries, and they very much did not like that. and they wanted to go to war no matter what it took, all right? Then we had America First Committee. That was right here, correct? You guys were America First Committee?
No, we were there.
Oh, you were Fight for Freedom. You guys were America First, yeah. So America First was an isolationist group opposed to any American intervention or aid to the Allies. So, like I was saying, they're basically the opposite of the Fight for Freedom. No matter what, they didn't want any sort of American intervention, and they didn't want to send troops over. They were against aid, nothing like that. We'll just stick to what we are doing, and then everybody can just do what they were doing over in Europe. And then the final committee, we had the Committee to Defend America by Aiding the Allies, the longest one. And they wanted to increase American aid to the Allies, but they opposed armed intervention. So they were basically the group that was kind of in the middle. So they wanted to help out the Allies, and even though they were neutral, they still said, okay, we can still give aid to the Allies over in Europe. We can still send them weapons, we can send them different things, but we're not going to send our own troops over to basically die in this war, but we're still going to help you out in any way we can, send medical supplies, send food, send water, stuff like that, so we can help them. Alright, so as you guys are still writing those down, I'm going to be passing out some note cards I want you guys to do something with. So can I have everybody go back to their original seats if they can, as you guys are passing these out. And so, I know you guys have been talking a lot about this, so who can tell me who's the president at the time of World War II?
Sorry, Mom.
Good, FDR, Franklin D. Roosevelt. Alright, and so if you guys turn, I think it's 476. Yeah, in the book. Yeah, bottom of 476, you should see a speech by FDR. Alright, you should be able to see a speech that FDR has that we're going to go over. Alright, so I'm going to have, I need one volunteer to volunteer to be President FDR. Who wants to be him? Alright, President FDR right here. Alright, you can come up right to the front. Hold on one sec until everyone has, oh, you already got one. So everyone has a note card. Good. Very presidential-like.
Go to bed.
Make America great again.
Good. Alright. So, President is here, and she's at Congress giving a big speech. Alright? You're going to need a book with you to read the speech. Alright, grab a book. Or Davies. Alright? So, as she was reading it, I want you guys, on the note card, just hand it out. This is for you guys to keep notes in. Is I want you to think about this big question. Alright? And I want you to think about what's the main point, and think about why is FDR giving this speech and why is he giving it right now, alright? He's talking to Congress, alright? He's addressing them, but why is he giving this speech, alright? That's what I want you to think about. And on your note card, you guys can write down what your answer is to that question, alright? So let's go ahead and let's listen to our president speak.
In the future days which we seek to make sense, we look forward to a world founded upon four essential human freedoms. The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his own way, everywhere in the world. The third freedom from which will seek to every nation a healthy, peaceful time for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. The fourth is freedom of fear, which translates into the world terms, meaning a worldwide redundance of
Reduction? So taking away.
to such a point and it's such a thought fashion that no longer nation will be in a positive to commit an act of physical aggression against any anywhere in the world.
Perfect. Let's thank our president very much for giving the speech. Alrighty, so I want you guys to keep thinking about what the main purpose of this entire speech was, alright? So I think right here, you guys should be able to watch the actual speech that he gave. Alright, keep thinking about what's the main purpose. Why is FDR giving this speech now?
The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his own way everywhere in the world. The third is freedom from want, which translated into world terms means economic understanding, which will secure to every nation a healthy, peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. The fourth is freedom from fear, which translated into world terms means a worldwide reduction of armaments to such a point and in such a thorough fashion that no nation will be in a position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor anywhere in the world. This nation has put.
Alright, so that's what you guys have in your textbook, so that's what we're going to go over. Alright, so I want to know, what are you guys' thoughts on that speech that you just heard, read to you, and saw on the screen? Alright, what do you guys think is the main, why is FDR giving this speech right now? Alright, what's his purpose in saying all this stuff? Alright, what do you guys got?
You want us to write it down?
Write it down, yeah, and then we'll come back. Alright, and then we'll talk about it. So I'll give you guys about a minute to write it down.
What's the purpose?
Good, so if you're still writing, that's alright. And I want you to keep writing if you still have a thought. But let's start to share what you guys wrote down. Yep, right here, what you write.
I thought he said this speech because, he wants to make the world have freedom.
Okay, so he wants to stress the importance of freedom. And he said a lot of those different things, like which freedoms he believes in.
I said it's important for everyone to have freedom, not just people in the jobs.
Alright, everybody in the world should be able to have freedom.
He's kind of making a point to why America should go into the war, I guess, to help out because none of the people in the war have these types of freedom.
Alright, yeah, we'll go into that later, that he definitely wanted to go into it.
We want people to know that to them confidence about the freedom.
Okay, confidence in their freedom, Jacob?
I said, he wanted the world to know that, he's gonna give freedom to everyone.
Okay, what else?
And we wanted to make sure every person of all those people have, all those freedoms.
Mm-hmm. So this is what he's stressing for everyone. Alright, does anyone else got anything they want to share? Alright, those are good points. So, the title of this is called the Four Freedoms speech, all right? Because he gave 4 different freedoms and he listed 4 different freedoms, all right? So you guys heard it when it was read to you and you saw it on the screen, all right? So you guys can copy these down and I'll list and talk about the purpose real quick. So Roosevelt wanted to expand the nation's role in the war, all right? So he was all for aiding the Allies and he definitely wanted to do that, all right? But he was probably even wanting to go into the war himself. But he was very much in favor of helping out the Allies in Europe and giving them supplies and medical and medicine and food and arms and even lending some ships in some cases, all right? So he's very much in favor of it. That's why that was one of the main reasons he's given this speech to Congress, is to try and urge them on and say, hey, we need to start helping out these people in Europe, all right? And then secondly, Britain was fighting for democracy, which is a huge American value, right? We were formed on democracy, we believe in that. Everybody has a voice and everybody should be heard, all right? And Britain's a democracy, and so Roosevelt's saying that, hey, if we believe in this and if Britain loses in this war, then Nazism, communism is now going to spread through Europe and democracy is going to get taken down. All right, we want democracy to be a thing in Europe and Britain, and we see Britain as that main source of democracy. So if we see Britain falling, the democracy in Europe is going to fall as well. And so that was another purpose of why he was giving this speech. All right, and it's called the Four Freedoms speech, and just like it's titled, there are 4 freedoms that he was talking about. So the first one, freedom of speech and expression. All right, that's one of America's values. We always believe freedom of speech. Everybody should be able to say what they want, and everybody should be heard. Everybody should have a voice in what they want to say. All right, freedom of worship or freedom of religion. Okay, so everybody should be able to worship freely and be able to praise and go to church or go to other religious sites, and they should be able to choose for themselves what they want and who they want to worship and how they want to worship. All right, so he said everybody should be able to do that. Freedom 3, freedom from want. All right, no nation should have to want from another nation, all right? So everybody should be able to be free amongst themselves. And then finally, freedom from fear, all right? And I think that's probably one of the biggest ones. I think that's the biggest point that Roosevelt was trying to hit on. Freedom of fear meaning, okay, people living in Europe shouldn't have to live in fear that they're going to be attacked. All right, people in Poland shouldn't have to wake up one day and then fear an attack from Germany. Everybody should be free from that fear, all right? So you guys probably woke up today and you probably weren't fearing an attack from a neighboring nation, right? You guys weren't afraid that Canada was going to come in and invade us today?
No.
Good, yeah, none of you were afraid of that, all right? But if you were living in Europe around the time of World War II, you might have woken up one day and that fear might have been realized, all right? And then Germany might have actually been attacking you. And then who knows, now you're getting sent somewhere, you're split up from your family. And Roosevelt's seeing all this, and he's trying to key in on this, saying, hey, we need to get involved because nobody should have to live like that, all right? And it's stuff like the troops that have done stuff for us and have gone overseas and fought in wars, that we now get to live in a country where we don't have fear, and we get to live somewhere where we don't have to worry about getting attacked very much, all right? And so, but at this point, America is still neutral. We haven't gone into the war yet. So if you guys flip back in your textbooks to 475, you should be able to see on the top end of 475, there's some political cartoons that I want you guys to look at, all right? And we're just going to discuss them right now. So let's look at the one on the left, all right? Who can share what the cartoon on the left is saying, all right? It has some words on it. Who can tell me what that says? You guys can read that. No, it's a little small.
On the left?
Yeah, the one on the left with Uncle Sam standing out. What does it say?
Stay out for my sake as well as
Okay, stay out for my sake as well as your own. All right, then what's beneath that? It looks like it's written on the sand.
America, the last refuge.
The last refuge of what?
Democracy.
Democracy. All right, and we see this girl hunched over, and it says democracy. It's written right on her leg. All right, and so this was going around at the time, and America very much thought that they were the last refuge of democracy. All right, and we see Uncle Sam standing up and saying that, you know, we need, and then we see across the sea all this smoke rising from Europe because of the war, right? And saying we were the last refuge of democracy. What about on the right? What do you guys see on the right? That right.
Nazi bullets.
All right, Nazi bullets. All right, who's sitting on the top? Uncle Sam. What's his sign say that he's holding up? Isolation policy. All right. So, a couple of those committees who are very much for not going into the war were sending this political cartoon around, saying he's trying to stay above all these bullets that are hurling down at him, saying we need to go in the war. We need to stop the Nazis. We need to stop all this happening. All right, and he's just clinging on to his isolation policy, saying this is how it's always been, right? And this is how it needs to stay. So, the United States is still neutral at this point, but that doesn't mean that we can't help the Allies. All right, and so one way that FDR wanted to help the Allies is by passing a lot of legislation. All right, and he passed a lot of laws to try and help them. All right, so I have them here on the board. They don't have the definitions to them, they just have the page numbers. So, as you can see, there's 5 main ones that I want you guys to go over. All right, I'm going to split you back into groups, but we got to go into 5. So let's go, let me see, we'll make youth 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, everyone got their number that I just said? All right, let me have.
Oh, we're supposed to remember it.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah.
I thought you were putting us in a
Like, so 5, like 5.
No, just remember your number, all right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right? Have 1s go up here in this corner. I'll take the 2s over here. 3s can be back there, that's fine. 4s over here. And then 5s back here in this corner, all right?
3, and I'm over here.
All right, look up on the board, all right? Starting from the top, number 1s. You're supposed to look up and define for me the Neutrality Act of 1939. 2s are the second bullet point. That's the one you guys are going over and researching. 3s are the Lend-Lease Act. 4s, Hemispheric Defense Zone. And the 5s are the embargo against Japan. Yeah, 4s are there. All right, everyone know which one they're supposed to be going over? All right, let's go over them now. All right, so in your groups, look in your textbook. I have the page number where you can find it. All right, so I made it nice and easy for you. But in a group, I want you to discuss, all right? So in a group, look for them and then discuss them.
We have neutrality act.
Get together.
We have neutrality.
Good, so look it up, help each other out, and then discuss it in your groups, and then we'll go over it as a class together.
So,
You guys know where you're supposed to find it? Alright, then help out everybody so then they can find it as well. I got, wait, which one are you? Group what? 5? Alright, so you're that final one. Alright, so then just discuss it then with your group what it means.
We both have it done, but then he's gonna write it and we're gonna talk about
Okay,
The entire
that's
Western
good.
Hemisphere is neutral.
Need help? Yeah, we're just doing
Bless you.
This is way better than pulling down. Not stuff.
part of this.
You guys got it? Which one are those? The first one? Alright, you guys got it. Alright, so you could only buy it from us. Alright, what was the, you you buy weapons. Alright,
Okay, so
what
on
it
the
says,
top, it was like 476,
alright,
right?
so they gotta come to
Alright,
us.
so
They
it
give us
was
a tax,
police
and then we'll
act
get
to
it.
solve the problem.
What
So
else?
let's try something else. So that's in the next paragraph. Because the United States was still technically neutral, Roosevelt did not order the U.S. Navy to protect
Alright,
the
what's the
cargo
number
ships.
100? We'll talk about
Instead,
that as we
he developed the idea of hemispheric defense zone. Roosevelt declared the entire western half of the Atlantic as part of the Western Hemisphere and therefore neutral. So if you look on the map on 477, see the Atlantic Ocean
You
is
guys
the middle,
find yours?
see North America
Alright,
and
what you got
Europe,
for me?
right? Okay, so
You guys are group 4? Alright, Western, so it said that Roosevelt declared the entire Western
Okay, so
Hemisphere
what do we write down for the Lend-Lease Act?
neutral. Alright, so everything like the United States, Mexico, South America, all that, he's saying neutral, right? You think that he has the power to do that? Just declare that all? It's a big step of power, right? Alright, keep that in mind when you do this.
So who's gonna be vital to the defense of the United States? Why do you say that?
Alright, where'd you find it at?
And therefore,
destroyers,
the
because
same
that's
kind
the
of
law.
government that we have, right?
Basically,
Which is not
destroyers,
right.
this is
Germany would be against that, so we would wanna help them. Good, sorry, I was distracted.
So what this deal means is saying, hey, we're gonna take these huge destroyers and we'll give them, we have a lot of them. Okay? We'll give
Alright, now come back over here and we'll
allies
discuss.
in exchange for vehicles. So we're saying, hey, I'll give you all these ships that we have because Europe needs them more than us, right? Like, we're not in war. But since I'm gonna give you these ships, you gotta let us build naval bases where we want. Where
For 5.
Britain has holdings in. Does that make sense? Alright, so
Wait,
that's
you
correct.
guys are-
See how it says destroyers 4 bases, alright? That's the main thing, yeah. Good, how we doing over here? Yeah, which one were you?
Well, because it's about Japan and then I realized more about Germany since we're British, but it's about Japan. Take which is an ally.
Right, so remember we talked about yesterday that Japan was a dictatorship too, right, military was, and they were gonna take over other places, and we said the closest place to Japan that has all the supplies is what country? Starts with a C.
Europe, only if we think that
Closest to
they're.
Japan.
China.
You're China, okay? So,
I don't even think
We're not gonna find that. Right?
Japan is trying to take over China. So, to stop that from happening, Roosevelt began applying economic pressure. Japan depended on the United States for many key materials, including all those things there. So, he's gonna prove his point to Japan, they can't just take over China by keeping them from getting certain supplies from us. And that specifically talks about strategic materials that they need to fight the war. So we're hindering them from.
I put all the materials underneath because, like, I wrote my thing and then I was like, oh, it has like a definition. I could have wrote it in the Japan thing and I was like, oh, that's whatever.
Alright, let's come back together as a class. So, I've got the entire, all of them listed here, alright, but let's talk about them as a class. So you guys talk them down while hearing from your classmates, alright? So the first one, the Neutrality Act of 1931. Can one of you guys read what you guys wrote down? Alright, listen loud and clear for them.
It allowed nations to buy weapons from the United States, but they had to pay in cash, and they had to come get them.
They had to come get them themselves?
Yeah.
Alright, so exactly, it allowed warring nations to buy weapons from the United States if and only if they paid cash and transported arms on their own ships. So the United States is saying, we're still neutral, but we'll give you weapons, but you gotta do the heavy lifting. You gotta come to us, you gotta pay us in cash, and then you gotta take them back on your own ships. We're not gonna do it for you. Alright, does that make sense on that one? Alright, who was Group 2 1940? Alright, who can tell me what you guys talked about?
They provided like old key storage to Britain, only if they gave us bases around the world that they did.
Okay, so in this case, destroyers. That means huge ships, all right? And the United States has one of the biggest navies in the world at this point. All right, so we got a lot of ships that we can use and that we can give to our allies over in Europe. But we needed something out of the deal. We're not just going to give you free ships and get nothing in return. So it provided Britain with old American destroyers in exchange for the right to build U.S. defense bases in and around the Caribbean. All right, so Britain and a lot of those other European nations own land in the Caribbean. Remember, you guys have been talking a lot about colonies and stuff like that. All right, so Europe has a lot of these colonies and a lot of these holdings. And we said, we'll give you our gigantic warships, but you got to let us build some bases where you hold land. All right, and then since Britain and France and other countries like that were in so need of a bigger navy, they agreed to it and they said, okay, that's fine. Third one, Lend-Lease Act. This is this group back here. All right, what do you guys got?
So the Lend-Lease Act was when the United States allowed to lend or lease arms to any country considered virtual to the defense of the United States.
Okay, so United States. So permitted the U.S. to lend or lease arms to any country vital to the defense of the United States. That last point there is the most important. Vital to the defense of the United States. So, are we going to give weapons then to Germany? No. Right, or Italy, or Japan, or the Soviet Union? Right, because they're not our allies. We don't want Germany to win the war. All right, but who are we going to give them to? Britain probably?
Britain,
France, and Poland, other countries that are getting invaded by Germany, all right? So we'll give you arms only and only if you're vital to the overall defense of the United States. All right, hemispheric defense zone, group 4. What do you guys got?
Roosevelt declared neutrality, had the entire western half of the western hemisphere, and therefore neutral.
Okay, so FDR took a huge power step right here and established the entire western half of the Atlantic as part of the western hemisphere and therefore neutral. So he's basically saying, if you look on a globe and you see the Atlantic Ocean, anything west of the Atlantic Ocean, that's like the United States, Mexico, Canada, all of South America and Central America. FDR is saying it's part of the western hemisphere, so therefore it's neutral. All right, not sure if he's really allowed to even say that, but he did, declaring all of it neutral. All right, so that's an important thing to know. Final one we got is the embargo against Japan. This is group 5 right here. What do you guys have?
The U.S. stopped supplying Japan with strategic materials,
Okay.
and it applied economic pressure because they didn't have any like oil or airplane fuel.
Okay. Okay, so strategic materials, what does that mean?
Materials important to the war.
Okay, so important materials to the war. So again, Japan is doing a lot of things. They're trying to create an empire at this point, and we don't like that. And so we instilled an embargo against them, and we restricted the sale of strategic materials. Meaning we're not going to sell them any materials vital for fighting a war. All right, so what are some of those things, like oil, you said?
Airplane fuel.
Scrap iron, stuff to build ships and planes out of. We're not going to sell them any ammunition, gunpowder, bullets, stuff like that, because those are vital things to fighting a war. All right, we're not trying to help Japan at this point. All right, so another thing that's important to know, you guys can head back to your seats right now, where you guys are normally sitting. Thank you guys for working so well in groups. All right, so we already said how the big president right now is FDR. Who can tell me who the leader of Britain was at this point? Say it louder. Someone say it. His name was Winston Churchill. There we go. All right, and he met with FDR, and they came up with this kind of agreement once the war ended and what they wanted. There you go. And what they wanted the world to look like after the war had officially ended. All right. And so this thing that they agreed upon was called the Atlantic Charter, and I'm handing that out right now. And I want you guys to read through it just real quickly, all right? And then we're gonna just go over it. I want you guys to highlight, underline, circle, whatever. I want you guys to look at, highlight and circle what you guys think to be some of the most important parts, all right, to this charter that I'm handing out right now. All right, so do that. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to do that, and then we'll go over it real quickly, all right? So then you guys can be reading it now. I'll give you guys about 1 more minute, and then we can go over it together as a class. Good. If you guys are still reading or highlighting or marking something down, you guys can still do that. I want to come back together as a class and talk about it real quick. So who can give me a point or something they thought was important they marked down? Alright, right here.
And it's the sixth one, it's, second line, it says safety with their own boundaries.
Okay, safety within their own boundaries. And if you look above that, it says they hope to establish a peace which will afford to all nations the means of dwelling in safety within their own boundaries. Kind of goes back to FDR's speech saying you should be able to be free from fear, right? You shouldn't be able to fear anything within your own country. Alright, who else got something? Yep.
It's in the first one, the part, like that, no,
Okay. No aggrandizement, tutorial, or other, alright? Establishing that as an importance. Who else had something else that we can, yep.
And the sixth one, and like second to last line, it says all men and lands may live out their lives in freedom from fear and law.
Yeah, alright, so FDR's going with Churchill and is basically just saying again what his For Freedom speech was all about, and then establishing that, and this is called the Atlantic Charter. So, they committed both nations to a post-war world of democracy, non-aggression, alright? So we want to be able, democracy, we want to be able to keep that from failing. Nobody should be aggressive towards another nation. Free trade, everybody should be able to trade freely with each other. Everybody's economy should be good. And finally, freedom of the seas. You should be able to sail where you want to. Alright, so you guys did a good job with that. Alright, last thing, and this is the last thing on you guys' packet. Important dates to know. Alright, these are some things that you guys need to know. So the first date that I have up there, December 8th, 1941. The United States declares war on Japan. Alright? This is officially when the United States enters World War II on the Pacific side. Alright, so there's an important date actually one day before this. Who can tell me what happened one day before December 8th?
Japan bombed Pearl Harbor.
We had the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. That's known as Pearl Harbor Day. Alright, and then December 8th, immediately after, is when we declared war. Second one to know is right after that, December 11th, 1941, both Germany and Italy declare war on the United States. Alright, so that's an important thing to know as well. So, I'll leave that up for you guys, so you guys can get those down. So, that's the end of chapter 13, and I see that you guys are going to be studying this weekend, right, for your test on Monday?
Yeah.
Yes, right? Okay, so I passed out another set of note cards. So, this is what I want to help you guys prepare for this test. We'll go, you three are going to go to section 1 in your book, and you're going to write down a potential test question that could be on the test on one side of the note card, and then write the answer on the other side. Alright, you four go to section 2, and you're each doing this individually, not as a group. So these four go to section 2 in the textbook, and write down a potential test question that could be on the test on one side, and then an answer on the other side. Alright? And then we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys go to section 3 and do that same thing. Alright, individually write down one question on one side and the answer on the other. You guys are section 3. And then you four right here, you guys will be section 4, what we just went over. So write down, you're writing down on one side a potential test question, and then on the other side the answer to that question. Alright, so let's see if we can do that in maybe a minute so then we can practice.
You think is important, you think will be on the test.
Alright, so you can look back in your textbook, you should be able to find good questions, or better yet, in your packet. Alright, because those are test questions that Ms. Dodd takes straight from the packet and puts them on the test, alright? So we'll be doing that in the note card. Your section 3. So still needs time writing down their question. All right. Good. If you have your question done on one side with your answer on the other, all right, please stand up for me. If you have your question done, stand up. All right, you have it written down, you got an answer on the back. All right, so for the next, we got 2 minutes, all right? Find someone else, read them your question, and they have to answer it, and then they will do the same thing. And then once you're done, switch note cards and then go find someone else to say your question to, all right? So go around and do that now.
But Facey is Facey is not.
Good. Once you ask, find a different partner. Keep going around. So you ask one people.
You know it? What year? Oh. I didn't look up for that. I didn't look up there. I didn't ask you. Oh.
Switch them when you're ready.
Wait.
You stop up.
You're supposed to switch to the allies. Davey, come back. You're supposed to switch.
Yeah, what is it?
Read it to someone new, yeah.
Oh, shoot, Josh, switch cards. No, I can't.
No.
Alright, now Davey. Alright.
Good. You guys go back, get your stuff, and you guys have a good day, alright?
Alright, so I need you to know that I'm not going to be here on Monday. And so instead of giving you the review and giving you the test on Monday, you're going to get the review on Monday. And we're going to take the test on Tuesday.
Yeah!
That's way much better.
Wait,
I don't think that's
Miss I won't be here Wednesday.
I'm going to give you enough cards. It's like more than
Yeah, honestly, I wasn't gonna send you a
What?
I thought you said Wednesday.
No, it's